This is Fedora 29, the Xfce spin, which I have installed on my internal hard drive. I'm using it as my main system at the moment. I was using Ubuntu Mate 1804 for the last 6 months, and I could have continued using it or using Ubuntu Mate 1810, but I frequently switch systems just to try out new things, to get experience about new developments in other systems. So my switch shouldn't be considered a rebuke of Ubuntu Mate, but simply my curiosity. This is definitely not the way it came. I've customized it quite a bit. The first load, you have the option of the default panel or a single blank panel, and I chose a single blank panel because I like to change things quite considerably, and I eventually installed a second panel. So just to show you what I have the whisker menu up here, and I've configured it to have the categories on the left. Then I have Firefox, which came with the system. I installed Google Chrome, which I use most often. I installed Thunderbird. It came with the Thunar file manager. It came with Xfce terminal, with the mouse pad, with screenshot, with the calculator, the DNF Dragora. That's the graphical package manager. I installed Simple Screen Recorder. I installed VLC Media Player. By the way, to get both of those, I had to install the RPM Fusion repositories. Came with Pulse Audio Volume Control. I installed Kdenlive. I installed MuseScore 2. I installed boxes, GNOME boxes. I installed GIMP, and I installed OpenShot. As you can see, I have both Kdenlive and OpenShot in here, but I used Kdenlive to edit this video. Then over here you have what they call a notification area, and this has the indicator for Simple Screen Recorder that shows that it's on, and I could pause or cancel or save the recording, but I don't want to do any of those. This is the DNF Dragora updater, and this is the battery indicator, and this is the Wi-Fi network applet. It shows that I'm connected. This is the volume control. This is the date and time. I reconfigured that. It originally just showed the time on the panel. And these are the exit options. I could suspend, hibernate, shut down, or log out. On the bottom, on the left, I have the Show Desktop icon. If I open a couple of files, mouse pad and the calculator. If I click on Show Desktop, it minimizes all of the windows. I can re-maximize them because it toggles. In the middle are the window buttons, and I have the minimized windows. And again, I can make them appear and disappear simply by clicking on the button. And I have the buttons with the text in them, which I prefer. You could also have the buttons with an icon in them if you prefer that. And over here is the Workspace switcher. Now, this doesn't show minimized applications in the Workspace, but it does show applications. For instance, I have Simple Screen Recorder minimized. If I click on the button, it unminimizes, etc. And when I unminimize it, it does show in the Workspace. If I go to Workspace number 2, I have the files for the current session of Kdenlive. And if I unminimize them, they show up in the Workspace switcher. And over here in Workspace number 3, I just minimize the 2 files I'm using as a demonstration. So I'm going to unminimize those, and I'm over here in Workspace number 4, where nothing is going on at the moment. One thing that I like about Xfce that wasn't the case with the LXQt version is that, at least as it's currently set, Xfce only shows the minimized applications in the current workspace. So you can have quite a few applications open without filling up the space for the window buttons or the task manager. As far as the desktop, you can change it by right-clicking on the background, going to Desktop Settings, and you get the standard background for Fedora 29. You could also load one of your own pictures if you wanted, but I find that the simple plain background makes it a little easier to see things that I have open on the desktop. If I wanted to change, I would go over here to where I have none, and I would go down to Zoomed, and that shows the desktop that would be currently active. And then, of course, I could change from there. So I'm going to go back to None. Now here's the Whisker menu. I shouldn't really even show you all of the installed applications because many of them I installed myself. But let me start with accessories. You have the application finder. By the way, you see the flickering tooltips? This is a problem I've had. I'm going to get rid of that. Let me digress a moment. I'm going to right-click on Applications, go to Properties, and where it says Show Application Tooltips, I'm going to disable that and close. When I solve that problem, I may re-enable tooltips. So under Accessories, you have the Application Finder, Catfish File Search, Clipman, Disks, Calculator, Mousepad, Arrage, Global Time, Password, and Keys. I installed PyRenamer. It came with Screenshot, Xarchiver, and XFburn. Under Administration, it came with DNF Dragora, that's the package manager, DNF Dragora Updater, Firewall, Keyboard, Language, Print Settings, Users, and Groups. Under Development, it came with the Geany Programmer's Text Editor. Under Documentation, it came with About Xfce and the Fedora Release Notes. Under Graphics, I can't remember whether it came with Blender or I installed it. It came with the Document Viewer. I installed GIMP, and it's GIMP 2.10. I installed Image Scan for Linux. I did that when I was installing my Epson scanner, and I did a video about that. I installed LibreOffice, and this is LibreOffice Draw. It came with Ristretto Image Viewer. Under Internet, it came with Claws Mail. It came with Firefox. I installed Google Chrome. It came with Pigeon Internet Messenger. I installed Thunderbird. It came with Transmission BitTorrent Client. Under Multimedia, it came with a Sunder CD Ripper. I installed Audacity. I installed Kdenlive. I installed MuseScore 2. I installed OpenShot Video Editor. It came with Parole Media Player. It came with Program Music Manager. It came with Pulse Audio Volume Control. I installed Simple Screen Recorder. And I installed VLC Media Player. And it came with XFburn. Under Office, it came with Abbey Word. I'm going to get rid of it. I don't use it. It came with Clause Mail again. Came with a dictionary, a document viewer. It came with G-Numeric. I'm going to get rid of that also. I don't use it. I installed the complete LibreOffice Suite. But for some reason, the meta package, which I installed, never seems to show up in Fedora, even though I installed it. So I'll have to see what happens. Anyway, here's LibreOffice Base, LibreOffice Calc, LibreOffice Draw, LibreOffice Impress, LibreOffice Writer. And it came with the Arrage calendar and with Arrage Global Time. In Settings, I'm not going to read all of these. These are the usual Xfce settings, and there are dozens of them. Under System, I installed boxes, GNOME boxes. It came with bulk rename, Fedora release notes. I can't remember whether it came with gparted or I installed it. It came with problem reporting. It came with the SE Linux troubleshooter, which is usually provided with Fedora. I installed software, GNOME software. It came with the Task Manager, Thunar File Manager, Xfce Terminal, and Xf Dashboard, which is an alternate desktop similar to the GNOME 3 desktop. And then on the top you have all settings, which opens the Settings Manager. You have lock screen, you have switch users, and you have log out, which is another way of exiting. And of course you have the search bar, which is one of the reasons I like the whisker menu. Now I mentioned that I had the LibreOffice meta package installed, but it wasn't showing up in the menu. If I use the terminal, I can type LibreOffice, press enter, and the meta package opens. But that's a little inconvenient. Again, if I go back to the menu and go to Office, there's no meta package. And if I right-click on the menu, there's a grayed out option here to edit applications. Why is it grayed out, and how can I install that utility? I don't know. If I go to Panel Preferences, under Items and under Whisker Menu, again I'm getting these flickering tool tips. Edit the currently selected item. And that just shows me the Whisker Menu preferences again. According to this menu, Libre is installed. However, I don't think it is installed, because when I go to DNF Dragora, I have to let this populate now. And I look for menu Libre. There's nothing under status. It says it's in the Fedora repository. It's clearly not installed, so let me try to install it. Okay. So now Menu Libre is installed. Let me go back to Applications, right-click, and when it says Edit Applications, it's still grayed out. So I'm going to log out and log back in and see if I can get the menu editor to work. So now I'm logged back in. When I right-click on the menu, I see that Edit Applications is now enabled. And I left-click on that. And I get Menu Libre. So, what do I want to do? I want to go down here to Office. And I want to expand that category by clicking on the little arrow. And you see that it has Abbey Word, Clause Mail, etc. Now, LibreOffice, the meta package of LibreOffice, is in italics. When I click on that, where it says Hide from Menus down here, it is checked. So I'm going to turn off that Hide from Menus, and that presumably unhides it. Also down here I have LibreOffice Math, which didn't occur in the menu but was installed. I'm going to click on that. Do I want to save changes before leaving this launcher? Yes. Now LibreOffice Math, again, I'm going to disable Hide from Menus. And here is the symbol for Save Launcher, so I'm going to click on that. Now I'm going to exit Menu Libre and look at my menu again. And under Office, I now have the LibreOffice Meta Package and I have LibreOffice Math. So the full suite was in there, it just didn't show up. Why it defaulted to those settings, I have absolutely no idea. This is just typical of Fedora and why some people don't like it. A lot of little things that just sort of automatically work in Ubuntu don't just automatically work in Fedora. Nevertheless, I like it. I've used it a lot. I would say that I've used Fedora Xfce spin quite often, as well as Ubuntu Mate and Xubuntu. They're probably the three distributions that I use most often. I don't use some of the more resource-intensive desktops simply because my computer has limited resources and they're really taxed to the limit when I do things like rendering videos in Kdenlive. Now, I just want to mention a couple of other things. Now, as I said, I installed GNOME software. I guess it's just called software. Even though it didn't come with the Xfce version of Fedora, it works very well with the Xfce version. There's just one thing you have to be aware of. If you click on add-ons, you can add some of these multimedia codecs which may not have been added, but you have to have the RPM Fusion repositories. But if you look under shell extensions, you get the same shell extensions that are available when you're using GNOME Shell. And of course, none of these actually work in the Xfce desktop, therefore the GNOME Shell. So you have to use this with discretion. Now I use the free utility in the terminal, free space -m for megabytes, to see what Fedora Xfce was using when I first loaded it, and just the desktop and the terminal and the free utility were running, and it was using 506 megabytes. At other times I've tried it, it was using 490 something. So it's in that range. It's a medium weight desktop. Now if I run the same utility now with Simple Screen Recorder running, it's using 839 megabytes. Still not bad. Notice that it's not using any swap. If I open GNOME boxes, and just for fun, I'll install Fedora Xfce. I don't want to use 2 gigabytes of memory. I want to use less. 1 gigabyte sounds about right. So I'll click on Create. And I'll start Fedora Xfce Live. And I'm going to click on Log In. It's a live system user. You don't need a password. And this is the way the default desktop looks. It has the regular application menu. I think it's called the main menu. It doesn't have the whisker menu, but that's available. And it has this dock at the bottom, what looks like a dock. I don't particularly care for that. I never use it this way, but it's easy to configure. But now, let me run free again. And it's using 2,118 megabytes. That's why I like a medium weight to low weight desktop, is that I can do things that would probably go way off the charts with one of the heavier weight desktops. But LXQt and LXDE simply lack some of the features that I use for productivity. So I usually settle for Xfce or Mate. So I'll probably continue to use Fedora 29 Xfce for production on my internal drive for several months, unless I run into some insurmountable problems and I might actually be able to find the solution to some of those minor irritations. This is XRAM Tech. Thanks for watching.